Hello everyone, welcome to Sky Sports Fantasy Football Game Week 12 preview with myself, Luke, and Niall. Niall, how are we doing, mate?
We're doing good. An actual decent game week for once,
I noticed.
despite some injuries and some rotation. But I feel like that was par for the course for most people. So yeah, I'm actually smiling this week. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, mine was okay. I think my rank went up about 300 places, which is okay. I'll take it. I noticed yours was, because obviously I do the ranks for the intro screens there, I think it jumped by about 1,000 places. I don't know if you're aware of that. So you obviously had a pretty good week
Well,
overall. I didn't really notice anyone do particularly well for my team, apart from obviously Salah as captain. Thankfully, got him back in. Otherwise, I'd have, yeah, that would have been the game over. The rest of my team, though, from memory, weren't particularly good. Rudiger, I think, got 7 points, maybe. Maybe I made that up. Um, Cancelo
yeah,
got
you
some
did.
bonus. Yeah, Mendy got his typical world star performance whenever he turns up. A sea of twos from my midfield, Gallagher, Rafinha, and Mbeumo. Obviously, two of them went off injured again. Christensen didn't play, and Kane was a lovely two-pointer. So really, my points came from Salah captain more than anyone else. Rudiger, Mendy, as I've already mentioned, and then Aubameyang was in this team was my captain across those sort of two games. But obviously, only one of them actually features in this week, I think. So yeah, he served his purpose on that Friday night. So yeah, what did I get in the end? 113, which I thought was okay, but obviously is not particularly good. What did you end up getting?
Yeah, I think 113 is probably about the average, I would say. I got 125, which isn't a huge amount more. Like you, I had a sea of 2 pointers from a midfield.
Mm,
I also had Christensen and Azpilicueta who didn't play and subsequently are nursing some injuries. So that's a worry. Rafinha went off injured. El is getting an operation on his hand. So between Azpilicueta's shoulder, Christensen's teeth, and El hand. I've got some really interesting injuries right there, but hopefully they're all going to be fine. But yeah, so on the upside, as you say, Rudiger 7, had Cancelo who brought in at the weekend, didn't get the clean sheet but picked up 6 points, exactly what you want from a defender like that.
hmm
And Aubameyang was captain on Friday, and I actually made a bit of a knee-jerk move on Saturday that paid off. I took out Alonso after kind of admitting defeat, I think, on him.
yeah.
The advice we gave was to hold. We held for two of the plum fixtures. Seeing the lineups, seeing that Chilwell was in again, made me think that Alonso was going to fall on the wrong side of the rotation wheel. So I actually took him out directly for Chilwell, and I captained Chilwell, and I got 28 points for that captain. So I
Wow.
was, yeah, that was. I'm pretty smug about it, but genuinely, the transfer was made with about 30 seconds to go at the deadline. It's not my normal approach, but listen, you've got to live a little sometimes, and it did pay off this time. Who knows? It will pay off next time, but
Lovely.
um, yeah, so pretty delighted with that, and carrying the Chelsea defence still into this week. So hopefully Christensen and Azpilicueta can recover from their bizarre injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Cancelo from Alonso in the end, so got some points. I did weigh up Chilwell, and I was strongly considering it, but I think it's probably just my experiences of the Chelsea defence for the last few weeks, and it's just like Cancelo feels like an auto pick for me, and obviously you've got him in as well, right? I think over the two, Cancelo's probably a better long-term pick. I mean, unless Chilwell is going to play every week and score every week, of course. So I'm happy with that. But obviously, if you gave me the option to, can I slip Chilwell in there right now? I mean, I'd love to. The guy's absolutely smashing it. And Christensen, I suppose maybe we should talk about this really quickly. I don't know whether it's in our questions that we're going to move up, but I've still got him. You've obviously still got him as well there. Any plans to move him? Because I think it's getting to that point now, isn't it? Where it's, or maybe you could argue it's past the point where people have lost some patience with him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have lost patience with him. I'm personally going to hold just for now. I, probably against my better thoughts, but um, I think that if he is fit at the weekend, he's likely to play. Um, given given that he's not played now in a little while, and some of the other players like Chalobah and I know Reece James played centre back the other night, but they've both played twice, and Aspilicueta might be injured. So I think if he is fit, he will play at the weekend. I think you're right. I think though, medium to long term, he probably is someone I'll need to shift. But I would say that if you look at his overall minutes this season, the games he's been resting, I think he's whether he was down with his tooth injury at the weekend or he was genuinely just rotated. I think it probably was the fact he was rotated because he wasn't the bench, but he might have been carrying something that they just thought will not bother with him. But if you look at the games that he's played, he's actually overall played a pretty high proportion of Chelsea's minutes across all competitions. The unfortunate thing is he keeps getting rotated in the league, which is just, I think, a combination of bad luck and maybe just the fact that Chalobah's been playing really well, and so he's proven that he can handle it at that level. But I'm going to keep my eye on Christensen. I don't think I'm moving him yet, but I did say that about Alonso a fortnight ago, and here we are, and he's out of my team. So
Yeah,
there's no doubt. There's no doubt he's probably on the chopping block. He's the odds-on favourite to be the next player to be removed from a team. But
yeah.
yeah, I think you in one of your teams, at least you'd had him before. Have you removed him now?
No, no, I've ended up keeping him. I mean, I had loads of other fires, so it was more a fact that someone's got to stay, and he seemed like the
Yeah.
lesser of many evils. Just because, I mean, I've got his points up on the screen here. When he plays, he's just goals. He gets 10. He's got 10 points 3 times. He's got 5 points against Liverpool. I mean, not many people are going to manage that, right? He got 7 points against Spurs. It's literally the only game um, that he's played and not returned any decent points was against Man City, where he got 1 point. Everyone else, he's got at least 5, and more commonly 10 or 7. So it's exactly what we expected from him. You're going to miss out occasionally with him, but when he plays, he's going to be absolute gold. And I still think across the season, maybe I'm being stubborn, that he's going to end up being one of the better scorers in that bracket for defenders still. There's players like Lewis Dunk, for example, where if Brighton suddenly put a string together and he's playing every week and Christensen continues to miss out, I may just bite the bullet. But as of right now, I'm going to keep hold of him. And I do think once the Champions League kicks in properly later on, and Thiago Silva as the season drags on, I mean, he's managing to play quite a lot of games at the moment. We've seen what happens with him. He breaks down usually, generally, as it goes along. That he might not become a problem. He might actually be a really good option moving forward as well. So more in hope than anything, but I'm holding. So if anyone else in those positions, if there's a player out there that you really want to get instead of him, I think that is a top tier player like a Cancelo or whatever. I don't have a problem with moving on, but I think if it's just a minor inconvenience, I think leaving him is a play, to be honest, personally. Right, I think we're going to move straight into the questions, aren't we? Because we've had quite a lot this week, so thanks a lot, guys, for sending them in. And this is the thing with Sky, sometimes week to week there isn't too much to talk about in terms of making transfers. Obviously our message is normally always to try and save them as best you can because we try to pre-plan for a few weeks. Obviously with the fixtures at our disposal and no surprises, there's not too much to mention. However, we keep getting injuries and stuff, and obviously you guys are fired in the questions, so we're going to move on to them. So Niall, if you want to start smashing them out, we'll get through them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you say, like my normal strategy to Sky is that you make some transfers early on in the season, set your team up, and then October, November, the autumn months are really the period that you save the transfers and sit on your hands a little bit. Um, I think this season, given the number of questions that we've received, clearly there's a lot of people who are nursing injuries and they've got some big dilemmas in their team. And you can't run away from transfers when you absolutely need to make them. So it's unfortunate. I think we both made at least a couple at the weekend. You're going to have to do it at some point if you've got players like Alonso in your team. Then I'd probably urge you now to look at shipping them on. So yeah, and I know there's been a lot of injuries too, so lots to talk about. And actually, the first question coming in from Liam Rayner, Liam, who has Raya, unfortunately, and what bad luck that is. He's been looking really good, and just before the great fixture run, he goes and gets injured for a few months. And actually, I think in the game there isn't an alternative
There's
Brentford
not.
goalkeeper.
No.
You can't even move him on to the cheaper alternative. Maybe they'll add someone before the weekend. Anyway, so Liam's question is: if you had to now replace Raya, would you move for Mendy? Although given AFCON late in December, that means booking in a likely additional pre-overhaul transfer, or Martinez, given he's the single game day and he's cheaper. Thank you very much. What do you think about that one? I'll come to you first.
Yeah, it's a killer that Raya got injured because he's that cheapest playing goalkeeper right now, isn't he? And I've been an advocate of you can do that absolutely fine if you don't do Mendy. It's literally those two are my favourite picks. Um, I personally would just move to Mendy. If he can do it and he's got the money, I just think he's the best keeper in the game by a long stretch. And yeah, he may miss a couple of games over African nations. Um, he may miss more if they go far in a tournament, but you can't predict that. He could end up only playing the initial stages maybe. Um, and it's a long way away where you could move to another goalkeeper now and they could get injured and then you'd have to make another goalkeeper transfer anyway. Um, so I would just get in who you think is the best option and is going to score a buttload of points until we get to December, and I think that's Mendy. So that's what I would say. And then if he doesn't play for 2 or 3 weeks, you could maybe look at moving him out then, but then obviously you've got the overhaul around the corner, so you make a judgment at that point. Maybe you don't move him out, maybe you just keep him if he's only going to miss 2 or 3 or whatever. That's my feeling anyway.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, it's difficult to overlook Mendy when you see the way he's playing. I mean, Chelsea's. We don't talk a lot about expected goals in this podcast, but if you look at the expected goals that Chelsea have had against them, the reason they've kept clean sheets at times is because of Mendy,
Yeah,
and the guy's capable of getting. I think similarly to Martinez last
he's
season.
this season's Martinez basically,
Yeah,
isn't he?
he
In an
really is.
even better
Yeah.
defence, if anything. Yeah,
So capable of getting saves, capable of picking up man of the match awards, and clean sheets are coming in by the bucket load. So I do think Mendy's the best option, and I get what he's saying. Does mean you're going to book another transfer. You could make the argument that Martinez, given he's got the single game day, would outscore
yeah.
him in that view. But
He is a good option, Martinez, isn't he? It's not a very like definitely Mendy for me, but I just edge slightly there
yeah,
because,
I
like you
think if
said,
you
there's three or
fast forward,
2 or 3 games.
I
Isn't definitely one game he's got a captaincy? Is it two even? I might have two. I'll have a look at the fixtures in a minute.
Yeah, well, you could probably, if depending on what happens with Rafinha, we think he's going to be okay, but you could bring him in on Sunday and captain him this weekend if you didn't have anyone else,
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
and then you could captain him against Southampton. So I mean, if that's the situation, I could see it, but I do think you're going to get to Boxing Day or whenever the players go off to the African Cup of Nations, and you're going to look back and think, "Ugh, Mendy's outscored him by a hell of a lot," and it's probably going to be, I think, enough to justify making a transfer at a later date. That's how good Mendy is, but I could be proved wrong. Okay, let's move on. Capkin FPL is asking, saying he says it's his first time playing and having a good season. He thinks he's 2,700 in rank. That's a pretty decent rank for someone who's playing it for the first time. And he is asking, how many transfers do I need to hold? Guessing these transfers will be useful in double game weeks to come. So thanks for that, Capkin. Absolutely, you're right. I mean, I think right now the rule I think people follow broadly, it doesn't need to be this absolutely week to week. I think people are trying to follow the one transfer per game week roughly.
mm.
So we're approaching 10 game weeks in terms of match days played in now. So I think anything around the 30 mark, I think is on track at the moment. I don't know
Yeah.
if you would disagree with that. I think that's probably about the where you want to be right now. Maybe slightly more, but I think 30 would be solid, especially given his rank's pretty good. And yeah, absolutely, as you say, transfers at the end of the season are like gold dust. They're so important,
Mm.
especially if there's massive amounts of carnage and chaos and games being rearranged here, there, and everywhere. And I would say that given the quality of some of the top teams in England this year, chances are a lot of them are going to go very deep in the Champions League. So and probably in the domestic competitions as well. So I can see there being quite a lot of rotate like games getting plonked in on a random Thursday night here and there, and you do really, I think you can cash in on those later in the season. So bear in mind that if you make a transfer now, you're probably going to be starving yourself of maybe a single match day player later in the season, where a lot of others who've used those transfers don't have that asset up their sleeve. So yeah, I'd say just if you need to make transfers to sort your team, do them. If they're players that are out and they're injured and they're not going to be playing, make the move. But luxury transfers, you might regret that later in the year.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. I fully agree. And if you're sitting around 30, great. If you've got more than that, absolutely fantastic. If you've used a little bit more, not really a problem. You just have to think about butting down the hatches now, basically. Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
totally. Okay, so the SB60051498 really rolls off the tongue, that name. He has Pinnock, who he believes is injured. He's going to move him to Livramento. Good fixtures, good form, and a captaincy day. I mean, I've been talking up, at least in my head, I've been talking up Livramento for a long time now.
You have, yeah, to me at least.
He looks great, and he saw it the weekend. I mean, he was playing like a winger. I didn't even realize he was. I thought he was a little guy, but then I saw him popping up in the box from a corner. So he's
No, he's
got.
got a tall, languid. Yeah, he's got a very head down. He's tall, but he's got like a head down style where he just sort of
Yeah.
torpedoes. Yeah, he's great.
So I mean, yeah, I wouldn't talk you off that one. I would maybe wait and see on Pinnock. I don't know if the full extent of his injury has been released yet. You might be able to advise me otherwise, Luke. But I think if he is going to be out and you need captaincy coverage, then Livramento is a good pick for me.
Yeah, I agree. If he's only got budget for that price, I don't particularly like Pinnock moving forward. I think right now was a bad time to lose him because they've got a really good run, so he could have done fine, to be fair. And to be fair, he has been doing well. And I do have a tendency to even underestimate the players that bracket, like I did with Livramento. But I think, given the fact he also offers the captain days, yeah, Livramento's an absolutely fine pick, and I think he'll continue to chip in with the assists and goals. And Southampton are obviously a very efficient side this season so far. I mean, we've known this to change with Southampton quite a lot, but certainly at the moment, every game they go into, you're looking at them trying to win sort of 1-0, 2-1. So I think the odd surprise clean sheet could still happen as well. And if they happen on those single match days, I mean, would anyone be surprised if Southampton win 1-0 and Livramento got the assist or the goal? I mean, I don't think anyone would at the moment. So fair enough, yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah. They've been really impressive this season for sure. Okay, rattling through these questions, there's quite a lot of them, so we'll keep going. So we've got FPL Hambone, and he's got two questions. So the first question is, I'll ask them both at the same time. With Raya sadly out, is Mbeumo the obvious Brentford option for the single game day, injury permitting, obviously? He also says that all eyes on their backup keeper. Yep, mine too. And the second question is, it time to shoehorn Tielemans into our midfields? So do you want to take the first question about Mbeumo?
I can't find him on my screen. Just repeat it for me because I was trying to find it while you were saying. Sorry, say it again.
Okay, I'll read it again. So with Raya sadly out, is Mbeumo the obvious Brentford option for the single game day?
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is it time to shoehorn Tielemans into our midfield? He's beasting it, to quote.
Yeah, he certainly is, isn't he? Yeah, I think Mbomo, assuming he's fit, is the obvious pick just because he provides a solution as well to a terrible midfield at the moment. I still think, given the option, Tony, I'd probably slightly prefer Tony. Like if you could just give me a straight fight between the two, and he is also excellent value. Um, but generally, we like those forward sorts. I know they've not been doing much at the moment, but I think that will change eventually. I'm hoping anyway. They'll start actually returning some points other than Salah. And
Yeah.
Tielemans, I think we mentioned last week when I made my perfect in inverted commas midfield, he was actually left out of it, but he was one of the other names along with Bruno Fernandes I'd consider putting in there if you were going to spend some more money, and he's again gone and scored. He's just a great sky pick, and he has been for a number of seasons. He just picks up points in all areas, tackles, shots on target. He occasionally gets passes, man of the match, takes penalties when Vardy's not on the pitch sometimes. Um, yeah, he's a great pick, and I wish I had him. So if you can get him in there, I don't hate it at all, and I think it's a good pick. So by all means, go ahead. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, he's highest scoring midfielder in the game, I think. So
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure he is by a mile. So yeah, he's one of those players that for some reason I always overlook. I think he just feels a little bit expensive for midfielders where you're trying to save the money.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look how many people own Rafinha versus how many own Tielemans, and they're about the same price. Now Rafinha is a great option, but Tielemans has been absolutely out of this world. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think basically the difference between I think the likes of us and a lot of the teams who are in that top 100 is that they've had Tielemans
Yeah,
since
you're
the
probably
overhaul,
right.
and he's been rolling in the points. So yeah, agree. Tielemans. I don't know if it's time to shoehorn him in. That's the question. I'd maybe bring him in when an opportunity presented itself, but I wouldn't take out someone who you plan on keeping to bring him in.
No.
And Embuemo, yeah, I actually think Embuemo's. I'm probably saying it wrong, but he I think is a really good option. Still, I know a lot of people brought him in at the weekend, and he picked up a knock and went off. He also had a one-on-one chance that he just put wide. Like
Mm.
I really hope for those who have brought him in, he's not one of those players who just does everything but score points.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at the number of points he's scored so far this season, he's hit the post more than anyone else. He's had great chances. He looks dangerous, but he's not returning. So hopefully for owners, he recovers from his injury before the weekend and starts to deliver on the promise and performances that he's putting in.
Definitely.
Um, okay, so Ben, Dream Team Tonic, he simply asks, Matip, keep or sell? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, he's in a similar boat to Christensen, I guess. They're very similar players. They're I know they don't play the same system as in a back four and a back five, but they're almost the second best centre back in their respective teams, and both do well for passing. Both are pretty good for clean sheets, and they're both around the same price. They've also, I mean, more in Matip's case, they've got histories with injuries as well. So I'm keeping Christensen, so I feel like I can't really advise anyone else to say you need to get rid of Matip. Um, so I think you can keep him. The thing is, he's not given us an alternative, right? And that's the key question for me. It's who are you actually selling him for, and what's the move you're making? Um, if your budget is around the same price, for example, I would probably just stick with Matip for a while and at least see whether he's going to be dropped out, because obviously they signed this Canate bloke for a lot of money, and then he played the Manchester United game. Now, is that a one-off game, or is he just slowly getting integrated in the squad? I don't know, but my point is, with a few more weeks, you might have some more information, and the worst case scenario, you might miss out on like 10, 15 points or something while you get that information. So I
Yeah.
would I would probably just keep for now. Yeah, and Matip may decide this for you, right? I just mentioned his injury record. At any point, the guy could break down, and then you'll obviously have the option to sell him then.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I think he's clearly been really good this season, Matip, and I'm surprised to see him benched for Kanate. I think Kanate was inevitably at some point going to come in, given they spent decent money on him, and he's pretty highly respected and regarded as a player. But Matip started tonight in the cup. Well, I think he went off early at halftime, probably just keep his legs fresh. But yeah, interesting one to watch. I mean, if Kanate does take his place, I think he could be a good option going forward as well, because he is the Liverpool defence do like to pass the ball around at times. So and they're keeping clean sheets, so he could be a good option. And if you are going to move away from Matip, there's another guy who I think has gone way under the radar so far this season, Laporte. So Laporte's only owned by something like 4% of the top 1,000, and he's scored more than Diaz. I think he's the joint third highest point scoring defender in the
Mm.
game. And again, looking at the team tonight for Man City, John Stones is playing in the cup, so it looks like he's on the wrong side of rotation, and Laporte's going to be playing in the league. So um,
Yeah, Andrew
yeah,
Morton actually says that as well in one of the questions there, just to preempt you. So he says, I have Diaz, but would Laporte be a better option, as Diaz isn't picking up bonus as regular as before, and it would free up some funds. So he's thinking of going Diaz to Laporte. That is luxury. But I do think Laporte is a great option. I mean, I suppose, again, he's similar to the Matip and Christensen, where he's the less nailed of the back two, and he also is slightly injury prone. But this season, he's clearly preferred, and he's playing every game, and I don't think he's been dropped at all in the league yet. If I think that's correct, I don't think he's missed a single game. I could be wrong, but I think when Man City rested against Burnley, if I remember rightly, it was Walker and Diaz and Grealish were the three that missed out from sort of their main team. So I think you can go Laporte. The question will always be later on when they really are smashing the Champions League. Will he start giving Laporte and Diaz a little bit of a rest to give Ake and thingy? But I think that's so far down the line, you don't need to worry. And yeah, across Christmas, games will come thick and fast. Maybe he misses out one, but yeah, again, it is similar to the other guys. I think Laporte's a great pick. I'd argue, even though he costs a little bit more, he's actually far better than Christensen and Matip in my mind.
yeah. I mean, he could be the move I make from Christensen if it looks like he's going to be done.
Hmm.
All right, let's move on to the next question. FPL Queen is asking, Brentford may have an easier looking run of fixtures coming up, but do you think it's wise to double up or even triple up on players for them? I'm going to take this one first. I think I'm not sure it's worth a double up or a triple up. I don't know what positions you would do so. You could maybe do Tony and Mbeumo, but that feels a bit heavy. And I think defensively, there are probably better options at the more premium end to avoid having two bargain basement defenders that I just don't think are going to be value in comparison to, like you've talked about, Cancelo, Chilwell, Rudiger, Diaz, Laporte, Azpilicueta, Matt talked about Matip, Van Dijk. There's so many options. Trent. So I think if you're going to double up, it would need to be maybe one defender and one midfielder. But I don't think I would do it. I think I'd get a player in. They've got a captaincy game coming up. I think one is probably enough. The challenge will be who that one is. I think a lot have gone to Mbeumo. A lot would have had Raya. He's now obviously out, and that may affect the defence. So yeah, I think personally wouldn't double or triple up, but I can see some merit in doing so because they are cheap and they are good value. I just think defensive spots are so precious, and I don't think I'd want to do that with two defenders.
Yeah, totally agree. They're great cheap prices. They're obviously a pretty damn good team on the evidence we've got so far. About to go into a great fixture run. Mbomo and Tony double up could be fabulous over these 5-6 games. Personally, I think the defender spots are too precious. Like Niall says there, I think there's just far better options in City, Chelsea, Liverpool, etc. And even the likes of our mate Webster, who's also a cheaper neighbour, I still actually prefer him just sort of long term. So yeah, one's absolutely fine for me, but I could understand maybe going for two just over this good fixture run at least.
Great. Okay, so moving on. FPL Dave is saying he has 35 transfers left. He's got 0 in the bank, and he wants to transfer Marcal out. So it sounds like he's got a good transfer number, and he also says that he's considering a triple transfer mini overhaul. Nice, and he's just the 1,000th in the world, so that's pretty good going. So yeah, Marcal, would you keep? Would you sell? And options around 6.4 million if you wanted to kind of help him save spending multiple transfers on a move. What do you think?
Yeah, that's tricky without having looked at it myself and played around, but I think Markel's got to go, personally. I don't really like Wolves long term. I know their fixtures are okay, but it's more Markel. He had a history of being very injury prone, and he's actually survived pretty well till now, but now it's just happened again. And when he's playing, apart from the odd tackle bonus he was picking up, I don't think he offers that much anymore. I think yeah, I do think he's a sell. However, I don't really like that price point. You haven't really got anything you can do with that money, so you probably have to get rid of him. I brought up his team here. He's got Saka and Grealish in midfield. I'm not sure. I mean, they're better than the cheapies I've got potentially, but they're probably not as good a value as the guys I've got. So I think probably one of those, maybe down to the Mbomo, at giving you a bit more money to play with that defender spot, is probably the play. As to how much money you have left doing that depends on who you move out, etc., and what you got in the bank. But that's probably what I'd look at, and then maybe see if I can get that Markel spot up to at least a Webster, but then maybe beyond that, and looking at the likes of, I mean, Laporte is obviously the ideal one, I think, like you mentioned. I think him and Cancelo are the two that are, sort of stand out as missing from your team as potential. I'd try and force that if you can, because I think they're just far better options than Grealish, right? So although it's painful to do it, and Grealish could do fine home to Palace, I think that the defenders are just better picks than Grealish over the season.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the options, I think the only player there that I would maybe think about moving to, just to save the transfers, right? Not having to make multiple moves. You can get Pontus Jansson from Brentford, who's 6.2 and looks like a real threat from set pieces, and they got good fixtures. He might be someone you consider.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pity that you're just a little bit short of the likes of, as you say, Webster or even Livramento, who's really cheap too. So
I think there's a Watford lad, by the way, in midfield. I can't remember his name. I think he's around 6 point.
Kucha.
Yeah, who's been picking up tackle bonus. I think it's like quite a lot of the games actually. So maybe he can get to him. Yeah, so I think he's picked it up like 50% of the time. I'd take a look there just in case. Obviously their games are horrendous, and they've got a new manager, so anything can happen. But if you just don't want to, yeah, like Niall says, want to keep the transfers and just want another filler player, he could serve that purpose, I guess.
Good shout. And I guess, horrendous games aren't necessarily a bad thing if you're a midfielder who's dependent on tackles. So yeah, not a bad shout. So yeah, I think he's 6.5. So Maybe a little bit just too expensive, I'm afraid,
Oh, has he got
for
nothing
our
in the
man
bank?
today.
Oh, he's got nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
but
ignore that.
no, a good option, I'm sure, for others to consider. Okay, so let's move on. Andrew Morton is asking. Oh yeah, we talked about this.
Done him. Yeah, I
He
skipped ahead. Yeah,
has Diaz would do Laporte. Yeah, okay. Covered that. Thanks for your question, Andrew. Okay, so Neil SkyFF 21 is asking, at what point in the season would you start to take risks with your team, such as going slightly away from the template to try and gain rank um, after the second overhaul, or would you let your rank decide for you? That's a good question. I'm gonna defer this one to you. Sorry, look, you can go first.
I don't really like taking risks in Sky just because of the limited transfers that you get, and then if it goes wrong, you have to fix it by using another one. So generally, when I take risks, it would more be about going against a popular captain on a particular day. Let's say this week, for example, and Rafinha's fit. Rafinha will be the obvious captain versus Norwich, and then you've got Antonio playing as well, right? So you could maybe pick Antonio over Rafinha in the later stages, and as long as he's a good pick, which Antonio is, he could easily outscore him. But you're still going to be, um, in the minority by going there. So that's the way that I would use risk. And to be honest, yeah, rank does trigger it to an extent because you have to obviously differentiate yourself towards the back end when everyone would be doing the obvious stuff at the top. But I don't think you need to even start doing that, until right near the end. And obviously it depends on your goals as well. That's something I should mention. I mean, if it's literally because you're targeting a mini league, then it's especially helpful if they've got their team open. You can then obviously play it tactically. But if not, I think you just leave it until right near the end. If you're like literally 10k right now, miles away, and don't care, then fair enough. You want to look for those high potential players that no one ever touches. So Havertz was a good example this week, right? I mean, it didn't work out, but he was a player who had the potential to score 2 or 3 goals in a fixture where not a lot of people had him. Foden's another one, for example, that a lot of people won't touch in Sky simply because he's quite expensive and they won't be sure that he plays. He's a player you could get in to get ahead of people, I think. So there's a few options. I generally tend to stay away from them. And Chilwell's another one that you got recently. Actually, people won't touch him because they'll be scared about the rotation there. But maybe targeting some of those guys is another angle.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. And not all risks are equal. I think there are educated risks and there are punts, and punts can work. We've seen that in the past. But I think an educated gamble would the one you've given is the one I took at the weekend with Chilwell. I thought he was going to be on the right side of the rotation, and he's got good games. So yeah, there's a big element of risk with it, but it paid off in that individual day, and hopefully will continue to for a little while. Although maybe at some point there'll need to be a transfer down the line. But yeah, I think for me, I don't really like the notion of risk taking and throwing caution to the wind. I think until after the overhaul, you just play your own game.
Yeah.
You pick the team that you think's the best. You captain the players that you think's the best. Um, I've never been one for kind of going with the crowd just for the sake of it.
No, but the crowd will generally pick the same as you, right? If you're picking the
Yeah,
right players,
yeah.
that's exactly what you mean, isn't it?
Inevitably that will happen, but I think make the decisions for yourself. If
Yeah.
you think they're on merit, there's a player who's a better captaincy option than the one who the majority are captaining. You may have a player that others don't, and you think that's a great game for him versus someone else. Not Salah though. Maybe try not to do that when Salah plays. He can really hurt you. But yeah, and sometimes it'll pay off, sometimes it won't. But at least you've made the decision for yourself, and you won't be coming out with any regrets if you've
No,
you know
exactly.
thought
And
about it rather than just gone with other people.
and last week I did actually touch on it where we've got a situation coming up in December where we're going to want to try and cover a lot of the captains, and people are going to be having the likes of Ronaldo and Kane, because Spurs and Man United are arguably quite needed for some of those. Well, if you go Son and Bruno Fernandes, they're equally as good, and some may argue even better, and probably will be less likely to be picked. So that's another way to differentiate slightly. And obviously, if your guy goes off and theirs doesn't, then you're going to gain massively in rank. So yeah, the educated gambles across the way are okay. And yeah, Jota example is another player similar to the Foden and stuff where you're not always sure they're going to play, but when they do, they return massive points. I'm sure you know. I know Neil sorry, I can barely talk at the moment because of this bloody COVID. Niall SkyFF21 is an actual good player, so he knows all this stuff as well, and I'm sure he'll be able to work out which ones are worth taking and which ones are not. And ultimately, you need a little bit of luck across the way, right?
Yeah, cool. Top man Neil, thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to Julian Wardle. Julian is asking, so many injuries coming in week after week. Yep, tell us about it. And having used more than the ideal number of transfers, do you advise maybe holding my nerve now and going with a 9-player max scenario for perhaps a few weeks, as there are going to be issues down the line where safe transfers could prove key? Oh, well, I mean, I'll give you my experience of recent weeks. I've been playing with a 9-player max scenario every week, but it's not been intentional. I've not taken a strategy to do that, but it's been happening because my players keep getting rotated and injured. So yeah, I think that there is merit in taking a cool head, making sure that you're not chucking transfers at something that you don't need to. But I would say if your team, if you've got players in there who are injured and they're going to be out for a few weeks, and you're going to be playing with 9 men before you even step into the game week, then I think the value in making a transfer is there. But yeah, I would always make the transfer if I knew I was going to be without a player for at least 3 or 4 weeks. I think that's justified.
It's an individual basis, isn't it? That's the thing. It's hard to judge unless who the player is and who you're bringing in. I mean, and Bomo's a good example this week, right? We're doing this before the press conferences. If he comes out and says he's going to miss a week or even 2 weeks, I think he's still a good hold option. And it's annoying he misses 2 weeks, but I think he's a decent hold option. So I would probably just leave that, and I wouldn't waste a transfer there. Whereas there are other players, if Salah gets injured for 3 weeks, I'm not having £13 million. I know I'd want Salah back even, but I'd probably just get rid of him and bring in another forward, for example, or another top tier defender for 3 weeks who could hit me 30 points in that 1 week and then go back again. So yeah, each one an individual scenario for me, which is a bit of a cop out answer, but you just kind of have to look at your players and think, what's the best case scenario here? Like if I transfer this guy from even the Brentford one earlier to the Livramento, that's where I start to question it already because of the price brackets there and whether it will actually be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And we've seen examples in the past of players who others have transferred out, I think, only to be punished by them, but because a lot of people held. And I think an example this week, and I'm not going to jinx him, I'll try not to, I'm touching wood, but Rafinha obviously picked up the knock. A lot of people shipped him on the day after on Sunday, and going by press conferences, it looks like he's got a chance of playing at the weekend. I'd imagine you'd be quite sick if you've moved him on to someone else, only for him to then play against Norwich and deliver a haul. So yeah, I think if there's a chance your player is going to be back fit and it's a 50-50, I'd always be tempted to hold, because you never know, you could end up coming out on that the wrong side. And even if it is a 50-50, chances are they're only going to be out for one or maximum 2 games, as you said. Okay. Brookie is asking, any options worth bringing in for the Wolves, Everton and Southampton Villa captain days, as he doesn't have anyone at the moment. He's considering Jimenez for Sarr and dumping after Wolves play Norwich, and Livramento as a replacement for Duffy. What do we think? I'm going to give a quick answer. So my view is, I do think Livramento could be a decent enough replacement for Duffy. I think no one knows if Duffy's time is up yet. He didn't play, obviously, at the weekend. He did get torn to shreds, though. I mean, to expect that. But I'd probably hold Duffy for another week. If he's benched again, then it looks like he's on balance probably not going to come back into the team with Webster also back. So I think at that point I would maybe move him on. And again, Livramento's around the same price. Probably just wait and do it on the Friday night. I know it's not the ideal way. We don't like doing that. But if Duffy's going to be out the team, then I think it's justified. So yeah, I'd fancy that. And I don't have anyone either for the Wolves-Everton game, and I'm not planning on bringing anyone in. I don't really see great appeal in either team. Maybe Everton slightly more so, but their fixtures are absolutely horrific after that Wolves game. So I don't see anyone there. The only player I'm thinking about is Hwang for Wolves, who scored again at the weekend. He's the only one that maybe will turn my head, but I'd probably require an injury to make the punt. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, Wolves Everton, given Everton's performance last week, you would think that Wolves are now odds on to score a couple of goals in that game just because they were so bad at the back. But sometimes these things go the other way, right? Where that'll be all they've been focusing on for the whole week, and they'll come into that game. We're going to keep a clean sheet this week, lads. You just don't know, right? They could sort that out. And Wolves are hardly known for scoring a boatload of goals. So I think if you would offer me right now Jimenez on a plate or even Huang, obviously I'd take them and I'd captain them, but I don't really like them past that really. And the same for you with Everton. Their fixtures are so bad that I wouldn't want them either. So I'll be skipping as well. Hwang is interesting though, being the midfielder, obviously pretty much playing up front, slightly on the right maybe, but 7.8 million. My only worry with him is they have just still got, and I mention it all the time, a lot of those players who are fighting for those positions on the side. And I just think, although he's doing very well at the moment, he has actually scored from about 4 shots on target. I think he's got like 4 or 5 goals in 4 or 5 shots on target, which is obviously a bit lucky. And then you've got Podence, you've got Neto, you've got Traore, you've got Trincao from Barcelona. You've got a lot of players there where if his levels drop a little bit, he will be out, which is what happened the other way around, right? The other guy's levels dropped, and then Hwang came in and he started performing. So I feel like it's not a dead set that he will just continue in that team. So it comes with an element of risk, and that's why, for now at least, I can justify to myself not getting him. Don't get me wrong, if this guy starts every single week and just keeps scoring, even if it's from 1 shot on target every single week, then he'll have to come in because none of the midfielders around that price are even doing anything anyway. But I'm not going to be using a transfer on it myself this week at least.
Very thorough answer. Hopefully that's appreciated by Brookie. Right, so SB's back in again. He's asking about Llorente captain against Norwich if Rafinha is injured, keeping Aubameyang or ditching Aubameyang for VVD/Diaz for a double up on those respective defenses. So first of all, I think if you've got Llorente in your team already, and if Rafinha doesn't play, then yeah, I probably would just captain him. Just take whatever points he gets and move on.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure to make a transfer. And then on Aubameyang, yeah, I think ditching him eventually for Van Dijk or Diaz, I think is a good shout. There's probably some merit still in holding him for a little while. Again, if it's a move you don't need to make, then maybe at this point in time, waiting until there's a good opportunity with the fixtures.
yeah,
I think looking next, not this weekend, but next weekend, there's I think you've got Liverpool playing on the Sunday, whereas no wait, Arsenal also play on the Sunday. Sorry. So yeah, so basically looking for an opportunity where you can make that move that you gain the extra fixture, I think will be important. And I think personally, I'll be looking towards the 21st of November when Man City play Everton at home to maybe take Aubameyang out and bring in a Man City player.
yeah. I think that's fine. I think because I've got Aubameyang myself as well, and I'm weighing this up because I have actually got money to go to a Man City defender. I think I've already got Diaz in that team actually. Maybe not. I can't remember. But either way, it would be Cancelo if I don't have him. And I do think probably the Man City player outscores Aubameyang over the course of it, just because I'm always a fan of those defenders at the back who get the clean sheets and the bonus. He probably does. But Aubameyang does offer a couple of alternative captains occasionally, and even at coming up they've got a captain day. So it's not 100% confirmed because obviously Aubameyang could just go massive in the games that matter as captain, and suddenly he becomes the highest scorer. So always for me, when it's like this close and you're undecided, I generally just stick with whichever one I'm on because there'll usually be a problem later on or something where I'll need to use a transfer. Right? The way injuries are going at the moment, Aubameyang could get injured, someone else could get injured, or whatever, and therefore you can kind of the tactical swaps are nice, but I think using too many of them is can backfire on you. So I'd stick with whichever side you're on. But if you give me a straight choice, I think Diaz probably does outscore Aubameyang. But is it by enough to make the transfer? I don't know. I'm not sure because the games are pretty good. Probably is. Maybe I'm giving Aubameyang too much credit after what he just did the last couple of games. But they've got a home game against Watford coming up shortly. I mean, their defence is pretty poor, and Ranieri, I know it's very short term in terms of how long Ranieri's been there, but I think him playing that sort of almost gung ho style lends itself to a striker maybe hitting a brace or 3 goals in a game, maybe. So, um, yeah, I'd be tempted to hold for a little bit, and like Niall says, just look for maybe an opportunity after the next 2 or 3 weeks of information. Hopefully, you'll know whether Aubameyang is a hold or not, really, because he actually got moved out. Sorry, excuse me. He got moved out to the left wing, didn't he? To put Lacazette up top. So if that starts happening, or he starts rotating the front three, then there's no debate.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's looked pretty electric in the last few games. I think
He's
he's
looked
been
decent,
back
yeah.
to yeah, his movement's been better. He's getting around the pitch more. He looks like his intensity levels are higher. I don't know if there's something, maybe he just wasn't fit before, or he's particularly fit now, or something's changed in his head. But he looks like he's working really hard, and I think when he looks invisible, he tends to do nothing. Obviously, he's not the kind of striker who, like a Vardy, who pops up with one touch in the game and scores. He does seem to be the kind of guy that needs to be involved in the play. Um, and when he looks good on the eye, he tends to return well with points. So I'm quite impressed with how he looks, and with other fires to put out in my team, he's probably going to stay for a little while, like you're planning on doing. Okay, Gordon Bell is saying that Antonio, with a tough run of games coming up, is it worth hanging on to him on the off chance of a return here or there, or should he make a move to Tielemans or someone similarly priced? My view again would be Antonio's a decent enough option. I'd probably classify that as a luxury transfer. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'd hold Antonio, and even when he gets injured, move him to Tielemans if you want to, and it makes sense at that point. I, I'd only be looking at those. That strikes me as the kind of transfer where you could easily backfire. You could use that swap, and Antonio could outscore Tielemans over the next 3 or 4 games quite easily. The fixtures won't necessarily matter too much. I think for West Ham, I think they're a very good side at the moment, and I think nearly every game they're playing in is kind of hard fought either way. Even against the lesser teams and the higher teams, they're sort of in the mix, and it's only by the odd goal here or there they're sort of managing games pretty well. So I think Antonio could easily still score in those games.
Yeah, and I noticed that you said when he gets injured, not if he gets injured. That's the
Yeah,
words of a man who's been burned by Antonio before. So there we go. Yeah, inevitably he probably will get injured at some point, but at the moment he's fit and scoring goals. So okay, so Chelsea is asking quite simply Christensen to Chilwell? Question mark. What do you think?
I think you should answer that because you didn't get rid of Christensen, but you got Chilwell, right? I've
Yeah,
got
I did.
Christensen, and I'm holding. Obviously, in a straight fight, I pick Chilwell all day, but whether it's a transfer or not,
Yeah, it's iffy. I mean, Alonso to Chilwell, I think for me was justified, but Christensen, I I'm tempted to wait and see what the press conference says if there's going to be one before the end. Well, there will be one before the end of the week. Hear what they say on that. If it's if he's going to be out again and you don't know what's going to happen with rotation, okay, maybe. But I do still see the values of holding him as we spoke about at the start. So
it's
I
more
don't.
it's more. Sorry to interrupt. It's more to do with the fact that Chilwell, although he has been scoring, I think 4 in a row, is not going to score every single week, and
No,
he doesn't even seem to be offering too many assists, right? Because they don't seem to be scoring a lot of goals from crosses to a centre forward. Even when Lukaku was there, it wasn't working. So Christensen will outscore Chilwell most games that they start together. I would have thought, essentially, unless Chilwell scores a goal. So yeah, I don't think it's even dead cert that Chilwell will outscore Christensen. It's more about the game time with him, obviously, as we've seen.
yeah, spot on. So yeah, I think for now I'd leave it. But that was the advice on Alonso a couple of weeks ago, and we left it. We waited until we had more information. The information presented itself, and I think it was clear that a move was needed. I'm not sure that we're at that stage yet with Christensen, but maybe that's just me being blind and
Mm.
having blind faith. Okay, so final question is from regular listener Tom SkyFF. Tom is asking. Oh, he's saying he's also getting annoyed with Christensen. Give us a break, guys. He's asking about would we keep him or move him on? We've answered that, but he's also saying he has gone with Ings. Now, do we think he's worth holding because he's covering captaincies, especially if Rafinha's out? So, what do you think of Danny Ings? If you had him just now, I'm guessing you'd be holding him through to at least the captaincy games that he's got.
Yeah, because he's made the commitment now. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of moving to the Villa option. But yeah, that's no good to you now, is it? So I'd hold it because I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of people will probably bring in a Villa option because I think they've got a 3-for-1 over most teams coming up anyway, if you include that captain. So yeah, I would hold him and then reassess. It is what it is. He could easily. It's Danny Ings at the end of the day. He's got a ridiculous goal scoring record, and it wouldn't surprise us at all that he just suddenly starts scoring or he gets penalties again and knocks a few in and gets shots on target bonus as well. So I'd hold.
Great. Okay, well that's all the questions. So I guess we've just got to talk about what our plans are for this weekend. So mine is very simple. Salah will be captain on Saturday. I think when I looked at the fixtures originally, I thought, oh, Brighton are pretty solid, not an easy game. Man City are playing Palace, Chelsea are playing Newcastle, but I don't think there's anyone who stands out shoulders above Salah and the form the guy's in. I'm not going to be going anywhere else. So sadly, it's a boring captain for me on Saturday. But yeah, now that I bet you're delighted that you finally brought him back in for this game. I know you thought you'd missed out against Watford, but in the other team, but you know he's absolutely essential with a capital E. Sunday, I'll be going for Rafinha if he plays. Hopefully he does, and if not, then I guess panic.
Antonio, isn't it? It's Antonio. Oh, you've not got him.
Not got Antonio anymore. I took him out for Aubameyang, so yeah, a little bit worried if Rafinha doesn't start. And then Monday, I mean, if Rafinha doesn't start, this could be a really horrible weekend because I've got nobody on Monday either. So yeah, hopefully your weekend's shaping up to be better than that. But
I mean, yeah, nothing to add. It'll be Salah. I mean, Man City home to Palace any other week. I'll be like, yeah, Captain Diaz or whatever. But I said before, we don't get to see the lineups for Man City. I captained Diaz already this season, and he didn't play. And that's when Salah went mental as well, I think, if I remember rightly.
yeah, it was.
Yeah, so that won't be happening again. It will be Salah. It will be Rafinha on Sunday, assuming he plays. If he doesn't play, luckily I've got Antonio. To be honest, yeah, I'm not sure what you'll do on that then. I would be tempted to maybe just skip it entirely rather than bring in another Leeds option or Antonio and just pray because Villa West Ham's not set as to which team's going to win that, right? And even Leeds at the moment, if they are missing Rafinha, they're missing half their team. So as bad as Norwich are, I don't know whether they'd even manage to get a result in that game. I honestly don't know what that would be. I could think it could end up being 0-0 or 1-0 either way. And then I won't have anyone for Wolves Everton either. So yeah, it's not gonna. I'm gonna have a bloody good Saturday like you, basically. That's the aim anyway. Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes.
I think so. I do have coverage. I'm still holding the old trusty El Yunusi, who's going to cover the Friday captaincy next week. But if I didn't have him, probably bring in a Villa player because I'd be getting a captain on the Sunday and a captain on the Friday from nothing.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a popular. I mean, that's what I meant about the 3-for-1 actually. So
Yeah,
if you move to a Villa player now, you obviously get the Sunday, then you get the double versus Southampton on the Friday. Before then, you can switch back to any other player. So although it's two fixtures, it's essentially 3-for-1 with the captains that you could do. So I think quite a lot of people will be doing that.
yeah, and I think that'd probably be a decent move. The problem is Villa options. There's not a great.
No.
No, there's no one who really stands out as being the best option apart from probably Martinez. But Martinez is in a straight shootout with Mendy, and there's only one winner from that. So yeah, it's a tricky one. And there's also rumours that the formation isn't the five at the back formation isn't working for Villa, and there might be some chance that they'll revert back to a four. If they do that, then who what personnel miss out, and who comes back in? So yeah, I think that could be quite tricky. So hopefully Rafinha starts, and we don't have to worry about any of that.
No, I'm going to float something past you. Let's say Rafinha doesn't start, and sometimes when they don't start, they get asked, right? And he might then say, similar to Bamford, I guess, we thought was only going to be a little while, and then he says, oh, he's out for months or whatever. Let's say hypothetically he says Rafinha's out and he's not going to be back for 8 weeks or something stupid like that. I might be tempted to move to Bailey. Now I don't know whether he'll even start that game, which makes it a massive risk. But because he's a midfielder around the same price, you could get ahead of the curve. It looks good maybe for the West Ham game. I don't know whether a captain. I'd probably still captain Antonio just because I wouldn't be sure he'd play. But then you potentially have Bailey in for Friday against Southampton. And the only reason I'd consider him is, like you said, I don't really like any Villa options. But with Bailey, I would probably be prepared to chance him for a little while, considering how good he's looked when he's actually played.
Yeah, I like that. We've talked about him before. I think eager for him to finally get to fitness and start playing games because he could be a really good option. I think. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know what I'd do. I'll maybe post an update on Twitter on Sunday. If you're if Rafinha doesn't start, I'll put something up on Twitter on Sunday and I'll let people know my thoughts. But I think at the moment, I'm just ignoring the prospect of Rafinha being injured and all eyes on him. He's going to play and just
I think
positive
he will.
vibes.
I think he will.
Yeah.
At least by the noise we've been told so far, it's looking good. Whether he lasts 90 minutes or not is another question, the way he's been going at the moment. But there we go. Right, I think that's it then, Niall. We're going to wrap it up there. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your questions, guys. Yeah, really appreciate them. Like I said, as usual, a nod to the members there at the end. Get yourself involved. Get yourself signed up to the site. Use that ticker. Use the stats which help prepare for which opponents are conceding passes to the other teams. Give you the option to, even when in the future Captain DS over Salah like me in a master stroke and then they're not turn up. No, I'm sure it will go better than what I did. We shall catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
See you, everyone.